especially in our Black community, elder Black people struggle with being able to look at how great you can be and then propel you further into it, because they are threatened by what might happen to them if you excel. And I get it. The irony of me being able to teach humanists in my company that I do own is understanding the historical context, the reasons behind things, and the reason to connect the dots to show you the why. In the past, you all wouldn't have been promoted in these high-level positions because they only have space for one Black. They only have space for one smart Black. They only have space for one talented Black. So cool, I get it. However, in the year of our Lord, 2002, I would venture to say that some of those things started to shift.
Welcome to The Exit Interview, a podcast for Black educators, where we, Dr. Asia and Kev, delve into the crucial but often overlooked conversations surrounding the retention of Black educators. While the spotlight shines in recruiting efforts, we turn our focus to the stories of those who've left the field of teaching. The Exit Interview aims to spark dialogue among school district administrators, school unions, families, educators, and anyone else passionate about fostering a more inclusive and supportive educational environment. Join us as we elevate these narratives, shedding light on the challenges faced by Black educators and provide invaluable insights for the future of education. Welcome to The Exit Interview. All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Exit Interview, a podcast for Black educators with me, Dr. Asia Lyons, and one of my favorite people, Kevin.
How's everybody doing? So glad to be here again with another Exit Interview.
It's good to see your face, Kevin.
Oh, yes. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
I think this is the first time we've seen each other in 2024.
I think it is. And so Kevin and I never see each other in real life, like once a year, twice a year. And people are always surprised by that. But like physically seeing him, it's been a minute.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, we had a Juneteenth hangout at his house.
That was it.
So we have a guest today, Brittni. So Brittni is going to tell us all about herself, Brittni Joy. I'm going to read her bio. We're going to talk a little bit about how we met, and then we're going to jump into these questions. So first thing, Brittni Joy is a woman who lives a life of purposeful integrity. As a Denver native, she grew up in a neighborhood that promoted the nurturing of community, a belief in collaboration, and placed a large input in expression and creativity. She has used these skills to develop a platform that builds upon the use of connectivity in business and beyond. Having lived abroad for almost a decade, which we're going to talk about, Brittni brings a very diverse cultural mentality to her workshops and speaking engagements. She understands that culture, experience, knowledge, and empathy are the pathways to create a more cohesive community. Brittni has experienced over 45 countries to date and knows that the largest...
But that's okay.
47? I just told her all before we started recording, girl, get your bio together.
Love that. Hey, when you live in it, it changes. It changes.
It does. Let's hope. We hope so.
That's right. That's right.
Like my life keeps getting amazing. So
that's right.
Oh, I love that. 47 countries to date, and knows that the largest connector globally is empathetic engagement. Brittni Joy has a BA from Spelman College, who just received a major donation of $100 million.
$1 million.
So
largest
excited.
HBCU history.
So excited. Located in Atlanta, Georgia, USA in Child Development, and an MA in Business Administration from the University of Roehampton, London, UK. She also has a hospitality management certification from Florida Atlantic University in Boca Raton, Florida, USA. Her educational achievements have led her to understand and explain a wide variety of topics to be able to provide insight and consultation on said topics. Her strength is justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, JEDI. Brittni Joy understands that with a focus on JEDI, the empathy is second nature in the organization. Empathetic engagement is a platform that is a component of every workshop and event that she conducts. Having the courage to see others in conversation, community, and alliance provides growth in self and others. Providing these engaging opportunities is what Brittni Joy stands for. Welcome, Brittni.
Thank you.
Of course. So Brittni and I met the Clayton. The Clayton is a club, how would you describe it, Brittni?
So we call it like a private members only social club. You bring people together that are more social and gifts.
Yes, we met up there and she was doing her and my shout out to Tanoa. Tanoa introduced us and Brittni was just like just shining, right? She laughing in the corner, having this good time. And I'm like, I gotta meet this woman. And so in one of our conversations, she's like, yeah, I was a teacher internationally, but I would never teach in the United States because, and I'm like, hold that
Hold
thought.
on.
Like, you gotta
Pause.
get on the podcast.
I got something for you.
So it's been a long time coming. She's going to tell us her story about teaching internationally, her ideas, but super excited to have you on the show. Welcome, Brittni.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you
so
for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Listen, on education, it's a whole different platform. But yeah, that is my life. When I graduated from Spelman, I was obviously a child development major. So that goes into education. It's more psychology based, but I took my certificate to get certified as a teacher anyway. Ironically, I became a teacher because I was bartending and lifeguarding the year after I graduated from college. Within the same week, this is how I know it was probably like the Lord, right? Within the same week, I was teaching a private lesson to this little girl named Miracle. And Miracle doesn't talk to anybody but her mama and her grandpa. And Miracle and I were talking about her new Michael Vick jersey. This is going to age me a little bit. But her new
That's
Michael
all right.
Vick jersey. And I was like, okay, like, tell me more, kick. And her mom was on the phone and was like, is she actually talking to you? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, what is she talking about? And I told her. Her mom was like, oh my gosh, you should be a teacher. And I laughed and I said, well, I'm certified to teach. And she said, what? And you teach a swim lesson? That Saturday, my mom called me and she said, so hey, real quick, just so you know, I didn't pay $100,000 for your education for you to bartend and teach swim lessons. You could have stayed in Colorado to do that. So I need you to get real insurance.
Why your mom come for your baby hairs?
I need it right here, honey. Okay, like.
And she said, I didn't drop on private education because that's what it is for you to bartend and get chlorine in your hair. Okay.
Correct. And so, ironically, the woman who I was teaching swim lessons to her daughter, she was like, well, this weekend, DeKalb County is having a teacher's fair, and I want you to come because I'm going to hire you at my school, period.
Okay.
There you go. Told.
So I went to the teacher's fair. Right? I got voluntold that I was coming the same week that my mom was like, you need to go get a real people job. And I got a real people job. I got offered 3 positions that day at that fair. And I took the one at her school because obviously she was the one that brought me there. And the horrible truth was that she left the next year.
Oh, no,
so
she did you like that.
My first year at this school was her. She wasn't even there anymore. She got promoted to an educational specialist. But
okay,
that was my connection to the school. So I taught in Atlanta. I taught in DeKalb County for 4 years. And this was a very shady situation. It's actually the reason why I moved overseas. So my principal at the time, and, if you know me, you know who it was. But my principal at the time, my first 2 years when you start teaching in most districts, you're stuck at that school, right? For those first 2 years. So cool. I was prepared for that. By my second year, I was like, oh, I used to be a cheerleader and all these things. So I started cheerleading at my school because whatever, we didn't have nobody to cheer for, but we was cheering. And I was teaching gymnastics and dance and things still at the YMCA. So when we were getting new mats, I was donating the mats to my elementary school so I could teach these kids gymnastics and things I already know how to do. Well, my third year, I was ready to leave the school. And when the transfer portal opened, my principal put me on a PDP, couldn't transfer.
Tell our guests what a PDP is.
This is a professional development plan. It means that you have to meet all of the criteria before you can be removed from this professional development plan. And you are not allowed to transfer to a different school when you are placed on a professional development plan.
In Georgia, is there like 3 years and you meet that non-probationary period? Is that part of it? Like, that's how it is here.
Kind of. So like you have the 2-year period where like you have to be at this school. That third year is the year where once they open that transfer portal, you can go to any other school.
Anywhere.
However, she put me on the PDP literally 3 days before transfer portals open and took me off 2 days after. Needless to say.
Wait. We got to give us a chance to catch up because my mouth was open and folks can't see that if we on audio. Oh.
She put me on 3 days before the transfer portal opened and took me off 2 days after it closed. So I could not transfer from her school. And I was like, well, I need a job. So I didn't quit because like, I need to still teach, right? So that 4th year, okay, now I'm here. I've been here. We got cheerleading. Oh, now my girls got something to cheer for because the coaches decided, well, maybe we should do some sports. Imagine. So now we got football and basketball for the kids. My girls just been cheering though. We was cheering at fake pep rallies and whatever the Lord said.
Yep.
So now we're cheering at the games. My girls are learning to tumble. All of them are starting to do like full round offs and back tucks. I'm teaching them. I start student council that year. I'm definitely like, we're going to make these kids amazing because these little Black kids that look like me, we finna be amazing, right? And then my principal was still on that nonsense. So that year, all these contracts came out. I got offered a contract and 7 of us, the last day contracts were due, still hadn't turned in our contract. And I was the only one who was like, no, I'm good by the end of that day.
Did you quit?
But there were 7 of us that were like,
hold up. Do I want you?
Right? So I was the only person that did not turn in my contract. However, one of my friends, ironically, canceled the contract a few years later, but this moves into me moving overseas. So I decided I wasn't going to continue teaching in the county. I went on credit.
Wait, you just...
Back. Okay, come on.
She's not even taking a breath. I'm trying to interject.
She's going. Really going.
Listen, I'm trying to give you all the tea so we could get there, okay?
She's chock full. I'm here for it.
We got a salad in here with meat in it and all the good stuff before we even get to the full meal. I just need to back up and I need to explain to us, what do you think was the tension between you and the principal? Like, what was that about? Because we haven't had that particular situation named in our podcast yet, that kind of move that she did. So we need to understand why that was a thing, or why you think it was a thing at that school.
So I'm cognizant that I made the school better. And I think that when you are in spaces that you make better, people are fearful of you leaving there because they know that you're going to take whatever was better with you.
Yep.
Yeah.
So when I started that cheerleading squad, it was under the guise of, I already do this. So let me do this here. And
it would be happening wherever you would be.
We cheering.
That's part of what you get when you get Brittni.
Correct.
That's right.
Correct.
Yeah.
And for me, I mean, my first year, like our cheerleading was like these little t-shirts that I got printed and like, so wear your jeans, right? But my second year, like, no, we wearing flyaway skirts, okay? Could not on 3-way tumble down the road, like, because this is who I think big all the time. Think big.
Yes.
And I think that my principal enjoyed the bigness while being fearful of how great that was going to be. I was also young, so I know that me and her was like, she was a little older, and I was like, well, sis, you're not going to tell me. Especially after my first year when my first graders had the highest reading scores. Like, you're not going to keep telling me what I'm not doing right and my test scores are showing differently. Like, my students are showing you differently. And even for my cheerleaders, the example was my second year, I created a contract. And that was for my kids and my parents. Let me tell you what you not going to do is embarrass Miss Ware. So with that in mind, we don't do C pluses or lower. So you're going to have a plus. I'm the first person that looks at your report card before your parent sees it. I get to talk to your teachers about your behavior. Please note that the whole squad suffers when you suffer, so we're not suffering together. I need you to get it together. And on top of that, you do not get to cheer for me or with me if these things happen. You sign it, your mama signs it, so everybody on the same accord. Can't nobody come back and be like, why you suspend her? Because you got to see. And you knew that when we started that we don't do that. So my principal saw the effort, the parents' love on me. Oh my God, Miss Ware, all the things, right? I think, Asia, you and I have talked about this a little bit, but especially in our Black community, elder Black people struggle with being able to look at how great you can be and then propel you further into it. Because they are threatened by what might happen to them if you excel. And I get it. The irony of me being able to teach humanness in my company that I do own is understanding the historical context, the reasons behind things, and the reason to connect the dots to show you the why. In the past, you all wouldn't have been promoted in these high-level positions because they only have space for one Black. They only have space for one smart Black. They only have space for one talented Black. So cool, I get it. However, in the year of our Lord, 2002, I would venture to say that some of those things started to shift. And I only say 2002 because I hadn't graduated from college at that point, but I'm also cognizant that what I experienced through this is starting to change because the people that were my age at that time have started to change their mentality about that process. So I get it. I'm mad that it happened that way, but I also understand the why and why it happened that way.
What you're saying is you've had this understanding, but we're talking to you. This is 2024. Was that something as it happened when you looked at that portal in your second year or third year where you saw that right away? Or has it taken you just your journey to say like, okay, on the back end of this, I didn't love it.
Definitely my journey. And I think part of my journey was me moving back to America and seeing the same thing in that generation that my principal belongs to. Because that mentality is not going to change just because I left. You still in America where you could still just be the first Black, the only Black, the one Black, the token Black, the Black. That's who you are. And so I recognize that while also understanding that I need to be the reason why that changes. So here we are. My principal is who she is. And here's the kicker. She my soror. So here we are.
Ooh,
that's a whole nother dynamic for another podcast.
In Atlanta. In Atlanta.
So, correct. So I go on Craigslist because, my mama called me. She said, you can't bartend and teach swim lessons for the rest of your life. So I was like, let's find me a bartending job real quick to supplement whatever this is. So I'm looking on Craigslist for a bartending job. I go to the educator section and the first job that pops up is like, do you want to see the world? Yes, I do. Thank you for asking. And then the next question was like, would you move abroad to do it? Well, thank you for asking. I sure would. Literally was like a step. These are the steps that you're going to take to do this. And if you make it, you make it. And if you don't, you don't. Fill out this application. We'll call you if you get past the application phase. I got a phone. So I fill out the application like June 28th. Phone call July 2nd. They scheduled an in-person interview July 8th. There were 7 cities they were going to do these in-person interviews. One of them just so happened to be the city I lived in, Atlanta. I did this interview. They basically told me all the things. I took my nose ring out after the interview because she was like, you probably can't wear nose rings, which was a lie, but that's another conversation too. And I went to the pool to go lifeguard to make sure that everybody was going to be safe until I figured out what the rest of my life was going to look like. I get a phone call that same evening, and I actually have to call a pool break to get everybody out the water because my phone keeps ringing back to back. So I'm like, something's happening. Answer the phone. It's the organization. They're called Abu Dhabi Education Council. They run the Department of Education and Knowledge in the UAE, and they are interested in offering me the job. They're going to send me the contract. It's in both English and Arabic, where they want me to mail it. Again, very ordained kind of situation. My dad at the time was working for a man from Iran. He reads Arabic, so I sent the contract to him.
Oh, wow.
He read the contract, and he was like, the only thing that's different is in the Arabic, it says, whatever is stated in the Arabic or changed in the Arabic will hold true in English. And 26-year-old Brittni was like, okay.
Yep.
Listen,
like, let's go.
At least, let's go. That's very good. Whatever's going to change. Yeah.
Perfect. Run it. Let's do it. And so, the contract was for 2 years, and then it would extend every year afterwards based upon your performance or if you wanted to stay. And I was like, let's do it. And so I stayed in the Middle East for 8.5 years, y'all.
Wow.
So 4 of those years, I was a teacher. I worked at a school. It was actually the first year, it was only girls, and the boys in the UAE, of course, they separate boys and girls because that's just cultural norm. And unless you're in an international school, and that's because international schools are more Western based, but some of these international schools are also separate. Okay. So please don't think that all of them are like this. But they were in the middle of an education reform. So they started this reform in 2009. They were bringing over native English-speaking teachers. And the reform was lit when it first started. Like, they pay for you to fly there. They pay your housing. They give you $5,000 to furnish your house. They pay your medical expenses full out. They pay for you to fly home once a year. And not like, here's a ticket, but like, here's $3,000 because that's how much it costs for you to get back to America. Have a great day at the end of your check. Of course, they pay all your rent. They pay like everything. So you get over there and you're just like, oh, so I just make a check?
And
okay.
Don't have to spend it on housing. Don't have to spend it on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Imagine.
I have a good friend, Jaquel Francis, who teaches in Berlin. And my good friend Effie also teaches abroad. And they've talked about that. Germany, her contract's a little bit different, but still this idea of it's just totally a different world. I want to keep talking about this because we went from like 2 years to 8, but I just wanted to pause and say like, it's really interesting, the lots of countries, and we've seen this all over, the value people put on education.
Education. Yep.
Yeah.
Compared
yeah.
to the
And
US.
the Black era of here. My friend, ironically, so while we were over there, we started this group called Black Americans Living Abroad. We have about 1,000 members. And
Right.
to date, right? Like still today, it's still there. And she really started the Facebook page because there were so many of us over there. She was like, we need someplace to go. If you start traveling a little bit more, you'll see lots of brothers and sisters of this country. So we have like brothers and sisters of Dubai, brothers and sisters of Qatar, brothers and sisters of Germany, because they formed from these groups of us being like, oh my God, you're there? Okay, well, when I come there, let me make sure we connect. And I think that like, especially one of the things that living abroad does is it creates a different type of family and community for you because all of you have one thing in common, which was to venture outside. So you almost like rely on each other because you're like, oh my gosh, this is so new. This is so different. While also being cognizant of like, she's from Detroit and I'm from Denver and she from Atlanta and he from New York, and all of our experiences in education and everything are different. But I will say that having that experience just teaching over there really changed how I approach even education because like I always tell people like kids are kids no matter what country you go to. Things that happen, like hormones turn on regardless of if you separate the boys or the girls, and life be life in, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
Yep.
so all of those things are factors that like affected me being abroad. And when I say native English speakers, so like the first 2 to 4 years, they probably mostly hired Americans. And full transparency, they started bringing over a lot of Black Americans because the sheikh, he's like the ruler. He had noticed that when they had started bringing over more Black educators in 2009, 10, and 11, that the kids' levels were rising higher, their behavior was different, and that their educational pursuits were better.
Interesting. Can we just pause? No, Brittni, you always be trying
I was going to get you there because I was about to tell you, they recruited specifically in New York, Houston, Atlanta, LA, and DC, and Chicago. Those were the 6 cities they went.
Yeah, because you said they interviewed at specific states, cities and states. Interesting.
Wow.
Somebody who lives on the other side of the world can notice something that we in the United States don't even
People can't figure out.
No.
People can't figure out.
Mm-mm.
No, it's always said, all kids do better when they have Black educators in front of them.
Period.
I feel like because we put expectations on you.
Mm-hmm.
My first year overseas, y'all, I had an Arabic co-teacher who got pregnant like the first month I was there. So by month 3, they were like, oh, Miss Hibab, we don't want you stressed in the classroom. And they took her out. I'm in a kindergarten classroom with 5 and 6-year-old Arab-speaking children who do not care because they're kids that I don't speak the language they speak. They still gonna come tell on somebody. They still got to go to the bathroom. He ate a bite of my sandwich. What you gonna do about it? We still kids. You better figure it out, Miss Teacher from America. So now I gotta be like, okay. One of my closest students, Wadima, I said, Wadum. How do I say in Arabic? Miss, you might say like, shuhada. Like, what this? Okay. So for the rest of the year, I'm like, shuhada.
Oh.
This controller. Inglisi, controller. Shuhada Inglisi, controller. All right. This how we learn.
There you go. Yep. There you go. Make it work.
This how we
Find a
learn.
way to make it work.
And like, you teach me.
Wow.
Habibi, shuhada Inglisi, shuhada Arabi, shanta. Mumtaz, shanta Inglisi, bag. So these little babies is teaching me Arabic and I'm teaching these babies English because either way, we got to get through this school year.
That's right.
And we here. And now here's the expectation. So now I'm going to have to go all the way back to the stoplight, happy face, a straight face, sad face, so y'all can learn how to behave because y'all never had this before. To the point where the reason they brought us over there was because most students in the UAE are not disciplined until you're old enough to go to mosque, which is about age 8. Now, psychologically, we all know as educators by the age of 8, because that's how we get the school to prison pipeline, right? By the age of 8, it's almost too late, baby. You are who you are. And because I know this, because my degree is in psychology, we're not doing that. We're going to act correctly, which leads to, a year from now, Muhammad's mom coming saying, Miss, you talk to him because in the home, he not listen. And I got to talk to him.
Yeah.
You're not about to embarrass me at your house. Now, should I be telling him this, that he's embarrassing me in his house because I'm not coming there.
Yeah.
But his mom is insisting on it. And so I think that even in my job as an educator, I used to call myself an edutainer because I feel like I have to educate you and entertain you just so you can retain what I'm trying to give.
That's right.
Especially for these Arabic speaking students who are learning a whole new language in different subjects. So the reform was native English teachers teach English, math, and science in English to these Arabic speaking students. And the hope is that they would retain it because they did like kindergarten, first grade, second, and then 12th grade, 11th, 10th, with the hope that eventually they would just keep together, which kind of did happen and also backfired on them a little bit. Because by the time some of my students that were in kindergarten got to 4th grade, everybody in the house could speak English but their parents.
Hey there, beautiful people. It's me, Dr. Asia. Before we dive back into our conversation, Kev and I have something exciting to share with you. Are you a dedicated Black educator or support Black educators? Well, if so, we've got some great news for you. We're thrilled to introduce the latest addition to our podcast community, the Black Educator Be Well newsletter. It's a space dedicated to all things Black educator healing, wellness, and more. We believe that taking care of our Black educators is crucial, and this newsletter is designed to do just that. Picture this: exclusive insights into self-care practices tailored for Black educators, inspiring stories from fellow teachers who've overcome challenges, and tips for creating a positive and supportive environment at work and at home. Subscribers will get early access to our upcoming podcast episodes, special interviews with guests, and even some surprise giveaways. How do you become a part of this amazing community? It's easy. Go to exainterviewpodcast.com or check out the link in this episode's show notes. Now let's get back to the conversation. Interesting. Which is what we see when we talk about our first-gen students here, right? Where they're going to school and they're learning English, and then the parents aren't learning it or not as fast, or the vocabulary is not as vast. And then this is what happens. Yeah.
And one of the beautiful things is like after my 4th year, I applied to be the head of faculty of a school. And so basically that requires you to be in charge of the professional development, really the educational reform and curriculum design of the school. And so the school that I got was a preschool through grade 12 school. I had, I think, 12 native English speakers, but I was in charge of 48 teachers. So I had to teach these other teachers. Now, here's the kicker. I had native English speakers teaching English, math, and science grades K through 8. But when we got to 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, my teachers that taught math and science were native Arabic speakers. And most of them did not have any background in English. The company that we all worked for, all of us worked for the same company, was requiring you to teach math and science in English. So my job was to teach you reform, build your curriculum, and then train you, native Arabic speaker, on how to teach these subjects in English.
That's a lot of work.
And you did that for 4 years?
So like I had to learn enough Arabic so that I could understand what they were saying and also be able to communicate with you to tell you what was right or wrong. I was doing classroom observations for all these teachers. I'm like, okay, that was good. I have to bring in a translator to make sure you understand what I'm saying when I tell you what I think, right?
Yeah. Give you the feedback.
Correct. And it's like, you've been teaching for longer than I've been alive, some of y'all. And yet you're like, why is this? First of all, the first thing who's this African? Oh, wait, she speaks. She's American. Whoa. That also speaks to the difference of living abroad, right? I would say when I moved back to America after 8.5 years of being gone, it was the first time I felt like a Black woman in almost a decade.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because for 8.5 years, I was just American.
Yep.
Sure. I've
Your
heard
nationality mattered more.
So yes, when we met and I was like, oh yeah, you'll never see me teach in America again. Why? Because taxes pay teachers and teachers pay taxes. And I refused to never pay myself enough. That's outlandish. 2, when I got back, everybody was on strike. 3, I left a country where they at least paid my medical expenses. The least this country could do was pay for teachers to go to the doctor. But also, how ignorant is this country that doesn't recognize that you live in this super capitalistic society? And the one thing that the United Emirates prides themselves on is everybody we bring here, we give them health care. Why? Because if you're sick, you can't work. And if you can't work, you can't make us money. So why in this capitalist society would you not vote for everyone at health care? Because if you're sick, you're not making us money. And all we all want to do in this country is make money.
That's right.
So these are some of my takeaways that I've gleaned. It goes back to even the conversation about my principal earlier. After the pandemic, I started working for an organization, and the older Black woman in that organization was also very like, oh my gosh, towards me. And she's in the same generation as my principal. By this time, though, I'm smart and wise enough to notice these patterns and behaviors and to know that she can't help it. That's just what she knows. And a lot of people suffer from ABT. They just ain't been taught the right way. So that's my life.
Before I start talking, I'm always the one talking. Kevin, do you have any thoughts, any questions?
First of all, it's an amazing story, Brittni. You know, I think there's a million ways we could go into it, right? And more in depth, you know, the experiences of being a Black American leaving this country just in itself is something that I've always been fascinated with. But also this idea of experiencing education and how education is valued and treated. The importance of culturally responsive education, like is what you were talking about, you know, all of those pieces. I think it's important to understand that there are different perspectives on education and how we can approach education, and that the United States, as it's held up around the world at times as being like the bastion of the greatest education in the world, is often very far behind.
And a lot of that, too, is like little nuances. I remember like one of my really good friends, Sam, I met him over there. He is from the UK. And he was practicing law in the UAE for a law firm that he worked for, but he was 24. And I'm like, how are you done with law school? And he's like, oh, I forgot you're American. Okay, now I'm offended. Go on. And he's like, well, when we go off to university, we just go straight into whatever we're about to do. You guys end up taking extra 2 to 3 years of extra classes that you probably should have taken in high school.
That's right.
And then we go straight into whatever our craft is. So when he graduated from university, he was 22 with a law degree and immediately went into working for a law company that within 2 years, he was elevated and transferred to Dubai.
Brittni, can you stop for a second? I need to process what you're saying. So what you're telling me is when they go to college, there's no fluffy classes. No,
you don't have to retake a bunch of the classes that you are, like you said, Brittni, you should have taken if you hadn't taken. You know, like we have all these 100 level classes that you enter into that is the subject of everything that you've already taken.
And so they just go straight to the meat and potatoes. And we over here taking electives.
They have a 13th year in high school is what it is. So your 13th year, and if you guys ever watch the show Sex Education on Netflix, it's a very good guide as to how they're really educated over there. Even if it's just like nothing about the education, it kind of tells you what this looks like. But that 13th year is almost a year that you do all of those 100 classes and decide what you want to do.
Yep. If you want to go to a trade school, then you're going to move on to a trade school. If you want to
go to law school, if you want to go to medical school, that's when you decide 13th year.
Yep.
Okay. I don't even, lost for words. Oh my gosh, this is great. This is really interesting. So you're back in the US, you've decided not to teach. And what you just said makes sense. And one of the things that we talk about, which you've already really spoken about, one of the things that we talk about is Black educator retention, right? In US schools specifically. And so I have to ask the question, and I always ask it, even though I always know the answer. What do you feel that folks can do, school districts and unions, higher education spaces, because we're having a lot of things happening in higher ed right now, right? Especially around Black women.
Professional, what is it? No, I learned a word today. Positional lynching.
Oh, ooh.
This has been a person of color, usually a woman, gets into a specific position, and then the organization in turn turns around and begins to lynch them in that position.
Yeah, so then I already know the answer to my question. We'll ask it anyway.
Right.
If you do know, like, what do you think is a strategy, if you have any, for academia, K to, or ECE to higher ed? What's a strategy for them to retain Black educators, seeing that positional lynching is a real thing? And I would say, like, turn that around, but I know better. But what would you think would be a strategy if you think there are any?
I think the biggest strategy would be to listen. I think that every education system lacks the voice of the educator. And I think that most of that, even when you get to certain levels, you think about these educational curriculum specialists and these principals, it's almost like they forgot. They forgot. It's similar to most leadership roles. You know what I mean? I think as you start to rise, you forget the impact that you had when you were smaller or in a lower position or what that felt like. Ironically, I talk about this, a special, like you guys know, I have a certificate in hospitality management and working in hotels. This happens all the time. My master's in business, my focus was on employee engagement in hospitality because specifically in the hospitality industry, people get beat up all the time when you're just an employee. The same thing happens in education. You're a teacher, you get beat
That's
up.
right. You're on the front line. You're the problem.
You know, so I think that oftentimes, shout out to my friend Alfred. He's just recently was elected the first teacher to the school board in Atlanta's history.
I saw that article.
Big up. Yeah.
Yes.
So where did I meet
that in the show notes?
Wait, where did I meet Alfred? At the YMCA teaching swim lessons.
Of course.
But this speaks to him. I remember us talking about this when he was first going into education. And he was like, how has there not been any teachers on school board?
Yeah. Oh, wow.
When we're literally the ones that...
who are dealing with it. Yep.
How is no one listening to the teachers? And I think about the sadness is that it's partially because no one in this country actually cares about education.
That's right.
Outside of the teacher.
That's really what it is. People talk a big game, you know.
What I would suggest, Asia, and no school district would ever go for this, but the incentive is, I don't care that we go to public school. Yes, every kid should be afforded public school education. Every parent should have to pay $25 per kid, period. And that money should go to the teachers. That can go towards resources. That can go towards your family eating. That can go towards whatever. But the problem is we put so much focus on fiscal and monetary pieces that if parents were forced to pay for their kid, I bet you we would have less behavioral issues. I bet you so-and-so will be reading. I bet you so-and-so will be doing their work. Because I can hear parents now, well, you're not going to be wasting my
money. Yep.
But you don't care now because you don't have to invest in anything. You don't even invest in your kid. And then you're mad at the educators because we voice our frustrations about you not investing in the offspring that you created. And I can love on your babies all day, but they're only with me 8 hours out of the day. I remember one of the first workshops I had for my parents overseas. And the parents over there used to think similarly, well, they come to school, this is when they're supposed to learn. When they go home, they play. So we were at an assembly and I said, all right, kids. So I had 24 kindergartners come stand on the stage and my parents were preschool through grade 12. And I said, come on up here. So I had my 24 kindergartners from various classes. And I said, so we're going to subtract together. And the parents were all excited. And I said, all right, let's count to 8. So 8 of my kids counted. I said, the 8 of you go on off. And I said, those are the hours that we should be sleeping. Let's count to 8 again. I counted 8 and rolled off. I was like, good job, guys. Those are the hours you're in school. All right, parents, how many hours do we have left? Let's count. Well, we got a number. It was 8. These are the amount of hours that they're still with you. All right, you all go on. Why did I do that visual? Because I need you to see that I only get them for half of the time and you get them the other half. You need to see this. You choosing not to help your kid or be engaged or teach them further is your choice. But then you can't be upset when they're not excelling. You can't be upset when they're struggling because you have 8 hours to help them not do that. And let's be real, those kids don't sleep 8 hours at night. I was hopeful.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're getting the 4 solid.
I'll get 6. I'll be happy with 6.
Right.
I'll be like,
Fingers
oh my
crossed
God.
that you guys get 8.
8?
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. Ooh.
I remember arguing with my first graders in Atlanta about what time they should go to bed. Miss, I'm not going to bed till 9 o'clock. I said, well, so is your brain. So here we are.
Yeah.
You're like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love this conversation of a part of the way we can retain Black educators is the more involvement of the parent in the education of their children, because it takes the strain or some of the strain of the teacher to be the only one to teach them what they need to know. And I think it's really interesting, this idea of paying per week, like a tuition or whatever that is, for students, because we know that when we get something for free, we treat it different than we had to pay for it.
That's right.
Right. I think it could be argued like, oh, well, we pay taxes, but you don't really see, like you're not.
It doesn't feel it. Yep.
No, It doesn't. And so that's a really interesting idea, and I know people can say like, well, everybody can, whatever the argument is. We're not here to talk about
You give that money back. You give it back to the families at graduation. All that money went into a fund.
Yeah,
come right back to you at
Or
graduation.
how about it goes towards the kids' education? You want to go to trade school or college, all that $10 you invested a week goes towards that.
It was in
some type of like college
account that was compounding
or
something.
Some summer camp for education.
They can find a plan for it.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. I have to think about that more. And Kevin, go ahead. You can go ahead, Kevin. Say what you're going to say.
Oh, no. I'm just saying, they come up with plans and incentives.
Yeah. It's totally doable.
Yeah, it is doable.
We tax everything else.
We do. Yeah, it's a thing. We figure out how to pay for. I pray that people figure out how to pay their electric and their rent or mortgage or part of their whatever. So that's something to think about. Talk about that more, Kevin. So our last 3 questions that we ask folks kind of talk about the present, right? And one of the questions that we just started incorporating, this is in our 4th season, is there a Black educator that you know or you've been taught by, raised by, whatever, that you like to shout out on our podcast? That's our first part of our question.
Wow. Sure. I probably could shout out 3. I grew up in Denver, Colorado, so I didn't really have any Black educators for real, and went to Spelman. And I remember the Black lady that used to help our preschool teacher because one day my little French braid came down in 2nd grade and I had to go have her rebraided, but she was a para. So shout out to her for rebraiding my hair.
There you go. That's important.
Shout out to Dr. Askew, Dr. Clark White, and of course, Dr. Houghton. These are 3 educators that really formulated who I was at Spelman. Dr. Askew, he used to walk around, hey, sweet baby, it's Fried Chicken Wednesday, so make sure you come to my class because he wasn't going to miss his fried chicken.
There we go.
Dr. Clark White, his best friend is Samuel Jackson. I remember I was in his class, Men in Society, and he actually taught my ADW class. So at Spelman, you have to take this class before you graduate. They don't care if you transfer in your senior year. ADW, which is African Diaspora in the World. Okay. So it talks about how Africans were dispersed throughout the world, but really affects women as well. So you have to take this class. Well, he was my ADW teacher. And then he taught this course at Morehouse called Men in Society. And I remember the day that I almost cussed out Samuel Jackson, who was the cusser outer of people, because he had invited Dr. Clark White invited his best friend to come speak to us. I was rushing to get to class and somebody almost knocked me down in the Kango hat.
Uh-oh.
And I came and sat down and I was popping off. I don't know who the mother and what they think. And my friends were like, yo, today's not the day for you to pop off. I'm like, I don't care. I pay tuition. And then down the stairs comes bounding Samuel Jackson. He goes, I'm so sorry to whoever the sister was that I almost made fall down the stairs. I was trying to go to the bathroom so I wasn't late for class. And my friends were like, boom. Oh, okay.
You're like, all right, I'm going to let it slide, Sam. I'm going to let it slide.
I'm going to let it slide this one time.
Plus, your mom paid the tuition. So let's just she already told you. She paid the tuition.
She did remind us of that. And Dr. Houghton, she came from Berkeley to come teach at Spelman. So she was already an established teacher, all these other things. But I remember her making me feel good about myself as just an intelligent woman. And she was AKA and all the things that I am now. But she used to tell my friends in college, like, one of your closest friends is one of the best writers I know. So you all should always have Brittni read your papers because she is going to show you better ways to start writing and to make your words come off these pages. And she taught this class called Children's Literature, which I love reading books. I'm very good at accents. I'll tell you guys my British accent later, but she used to tell me, like, you have such a knowledge of children's literature that you will be an amazing elementary educator because you will take these kids to a different road that you will never know about. So even now, like I volunteer at the Tatter Cover here in Colorado, and I just read books to the kids because.
Oh, I love that.
Love it.
Yeah.
So shout out to those. Amazing.
Yeah. So you're out here. You kind of hinted about it a little earlier, but you're back. Obviously, you've been back for a little bit. Tell us what you're doing now. You're not in the classroom. So what are you up to? Tell us all the things we want to know.
I love it. So when I first went back to America, of course, I was trying to figure out how to work like an American because y'all work a lot. And so I started working at a hotel. I started working at the Hyatt just so I could get used to working again. I left that position. I started working at the National Minority Supplier Development Council. I was their regional business manager here. So I basically was in charge of Colorado, Nebraska, Missouri, and Kansas. And I did business development for minority business owners, as well as educating Fortune 500, 100 companies in supplier diversity and DEI. When I moved from that space, because I have this master's degree in business, what am I going to do with this, right? As Asia mentioned earlier, we met at the Clayton. So I was kind of headhunted for this position to be their executive director of philanthropy for their philanthropic arm of the Members Club. So it was a brand new nonprofit. They were starting a foundation. They wanted somebody to just kind of like make it be amazing. And they were like, hey, Brittni, here you are. So I got that position. I feel like I did amazing work. We started a nonprofit networking night. I would give micro grants to some of the nonprofits in the city that are just doing great work that most of these wealthier members of the Members Club could actually learn and do good work for these companies. And so through all of that, I feel like I made a lot of amazing connections among other things. I met Asia, I met Tanoa. Both of them were like, you should really just start a consulting company because you know a lot and you can do great work. I mean, one of the things that I really want to do while I'm in Colorado is make big impact. So I started a consulting company. I own Brittni Joy Consulting. The Joy stands for Jumpstarting Opportunities and Yields. That's in every organization. And basically my focus in this company is to reteach companies, people, organizations, humanness. I think that when we focus on just the human, we offer a greater opportunity than when we focus on what their title and identity is. And not that your identity is not important, but that identity makes you that human. So being cognizant that although Asia might be a Black woman, she is a human first. And so let me treat her as such, and you might be a disabled man. I remember working really intensely with Councilman Chris Hines. He's a disabled councilman in a chair. And he was actually the one that taught me that disability is the one marginalized community that can affect anybody at any age, at any time, and you never know when it's going to strike. And for him, it's his testimony. He literally was walking and doing all the things, and now he cannot use the lower half of his whole body. And he got elected a councilman. He taught me so many things about the things that are just wrong in various cities. How many cities do you know it's legally required for most buildings to be ADA accessible, but who's checking?
Yeah.
Like those buildings that are built in 1957 that everybody thinks are so beautiful, who's checking those? And so just recognizing how when we start to look at humans fully, we don't mistreat, and we need to start looking more at humans fully so that we can connect to them. This speaks to my bio of empathetic engagement. It builds community. To have empathy is to be able to look outside of yourself at someone else's situation and try to understand. And I think that requires self-reflection, which, having moved back to our illustrious America, I notice most of us are lacking. That requires you to have communication and be a little bit more open to what you're used to. And again, moving back to America, I noticed that we are lacking. And that requires you to not be in an echo chamber. And social media has created these echo chambers of individualized silos that do not focus on humans and their needs. So I think that when I started Brittni Joy Consulting, of course, my middle name is Joy, but it was a great opportunity for me to find out ways to jumpstart these opportunities for other organizations to be better. And let's look at the term equity. Let me give you some tools in your toolbox so that when you are having these hard conversations with your coworker who might be white or Black or disabled, you aren't failing, but you can actually have a real conversation.
How can people find you or reach out to you if they would like to get some support at their organization?
Yes, please. So you can go on my website, www.brittnijoy.com. That's BRITTNI, because my mama believes in phonics. JOY.com. You can also email me, Brittni@brittnijoy.com. But under this consulting business, I'm also like the executive director of Capitol Hill United Neighborhoods. They hired my consulting company to contract that. I've done various equity workshops throughout the state of Colorado at this point. And I think that professional development work that I did abroad really propelled me to be able to do facilitation and things of that nature. I've done basic facilitations for different churches, various nonprofits in the city. And so I'm really good at being able to help people have a conversation to make things better. So find me, email me, reach out to me. Let's make humans great again.
I love that. I love that. There we go. There we go. Free bread. I love
right?
it. Much better.
Listen.
Love that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Go ahead, Kevin. You got it.
No, I was going to ask our last question. And Brittni, I know there's probably millions of things because you are bringing this to me in Asia right now. But what is bringing you joy in life? What is bringing you your joy right now?
My house brings me joy. I have an amazing supportive partner. I have a cute dog and a cute little cat that sometimes are annoying, but I love on them. My family, massively supportive. I moved back to Colorado to be closer to my mom and my dad. And just so I could be around normalcy, which would be my family. And really, like, music brings me joy. I could sing a song at any point and I'd be happy. If you guys ever want to go karaoke, let me know. But joy is such a beautiful feeling. I think that people are often like, happiness, happiness, happiness. And one thing I used to teach my kids is, happiness, sadness, these are feelings, they will change. But joy is one of those intentional decisions that can remain forever. So you can be sad and still have joy. You can be angry, but still have joy. And so making the choice to choose joy is something I think everyone should do. So I think that lots of things bring me joy at this point because I'm choosing.
We love that.
Well, another fantastic episode in the books. Kevin,
yes,
we got the best guests. Let's just be real.
We do.
Well, listen. Well, shout out to Kevin Asia for doing this. I mean, I think it's so transitional to hear other educators talk about how they transitioned out of education. And I know a lot of my friends specifically are in that space of how do I not do this anymore?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't always have to start a business to get out of education. You can go into HR. You can go into any type of facilitation or training, professional development, learning development. These are positions. A lot of these companies are like, we don't have anybody that knows how to teach.
That's absolutely right.
And that's your skill set. If you're an educator, that's what you do know how.
That's what you do.
Modify your resume to fit some of the job description, but just be mindful that everything you know how to do, everybody else is looking for.
Yeah, I love that.
I love that. That's an important message right there, folks.
You need to get out, Paul.
Yeah.
She's saying it, but she's not saying it, folks. Okay.
That's it. There you go.
Yes. Well, that's going to be the last of our episode. She dropped the mic on us. You can find us. This episode will be dropping in January. We're super excited. This is season 4. So we're going to keep on showing up for our community. In the meantime, we'll talk to you later. Peace out. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. We hope that you've gained valuable perspectives and a deeper understanding of the conversation surrounding Black educator retention. As we conclude this episode, we encourage you to join our Patreon to support our work. Plus, as a patron, you receive bonus episodes, merch giveaways, and much more. Stay engaged with us on our social media, sign up for our newsletter in the show notes, take a look at our YouTube page, and interact with us on our website. Remember, the stories we've shared today are just the beginning, and your participation is vital for the future of education.